Hey, knitters! Welcome to episode 220 of the Knitty McPurly podcast. I am your host, Devin Ventry. You can find me at KnittyMcPurly.com. I'm Knitty McPurly on Instagram, and if you want to email me, I am Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. This morning, I'm drinking out of my Tennessee cup. Hello, Tennesseans! Tennessee is one of the few cups that I have multiples of. So, thank you, Tennessee, for the love. You guys, it is cold. It is wet and rainy. So we're going to kind of summer it up a little bit here on the podcast because that is the weather that I really want right now, but we don't have it. Anyway, I finished my Flutterbutt. Didn't it come out so cute? It's kind of cuter than the other one because of the shorter ruffles. Everything is just a little bit smaller and it just made it come out a little bit cute. Let's get right on to progress and shop news. So we are coming to the end of the Flutterbutt knit along. It ends, let's see, today's Saturday. It ends a week from today, April 19th, which is Holy Saturday, Saturday before Easter Sunday. I hope yours is going well. I made 2 of them. And I'm kind of busy. So I think that if I could make 2, you could probably finish 1. Hopefully. I feel like 6 weeks was enough time. I thought it would be fun if I tried on my 2 Flutterbutt shirts with some different outfits, just to give you an idea of how you can pair this shirt with what's in your closet. This is just stuff from my closet. So here's a little fashion show. They're really very different, right? They came out super different. The main differences, this is Madeline Tosh, Modern Fair Isle is the colorway, and it's in Merino Light, which is just a regular single ply superwash fingering weight yarn. And I think it came out great. I love it. My other one is Knitty McPurly Sorrento Slub in the Orchid colorway. I think that one came out great too. But the difference between a longer shirt with a shorter armhole, this one has the regular armhole. The pink one, the Orchid one, it has a shorter armhole, longer body, longer ruffles, and it's just a very different look. But I love them both. They came out great. My main reason for making this one was for this application. The over the dress application, where you have a dress that has maybe a strap or just not enough coverage at the top, and maybe you're going to an event that you need a little more coverage, or if you just get a little bit cold, you can throw this on and that would do it. Because I told you, my friends had this garment and I was like, how do you own this? And I don't. I'm a knitter. I should have this. So I'm glad to have this in my wardrobe right now. And I think the video really shows just the different shapes of clothing and how they pair. That was really fun doing it. I'm sorry the lighting isn't better, but this is where we are. Okay, you guys, Advent calendars are live. If this is something that you've been waiting for, they are here. The reason I'm doing them a little early this year, last year I think I put them up in August, I've put them up in July before, and here we are in April, but everybody is putting their advent calendars out earlier and earlier in hopes that you will choose their advent calendar. So apparently that's the game that we're playing. So here I am. The Knitty McPurly advent calendar theme this year is For God So Loved the World. And that is, of course, from John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. That's John 3:16, where, you see it at the football games, and it's basically Christianity in a nutshell. But I thought it would be great to use the colors of nature to inspire the Advent calendar. So it will be a lot of blue and a lot of green. A lot of blue and green. If you're a lover of blue and green, you will be happy. But of course, with all the colors of nature included. As always, the Knitty McPurly Advent Calendar will be 25 20-gram minis. And this year, to add a new twist, you're going to be able to choose between Frankfurt fingering weight and Dubrovnik DK weight. So you could get either a fingering weight or a DK weight, or both if you feel that you need both. I won't judge you. Calendars will ship probably around the beginning of November, because I like to give a lot of time for shipping, because you never know, especially that time of year, there's a lot of shipping happening. So I don't want anything to be delayed. Last year, Canada Post had that strike, and I had a lovely knitter, and it was well after. I had mailed it like November 1st, and it sat, I think, in New York for like 6 weeks. I hope she got it. She was like, I still don't have it. I'm like, I'm really sorry. I didn't know that Canada was on strike. So anyway, on my listing, I have pulled up a bunch of options, and these are just some of them. The options are really endless of projects that would be great to pair with this yarn. Most of the ones that I picked are fingering weight, but there are some good DK weight ones too. So if you want to go over to my website and check that out, the pre-order will be up for a few weeks. So, don't feel like you have to rush and get there. I'm also open to doing as many as I need up to a certain point. So those are available now. Go check it out on the website if you are interested. I think the price point is really good. I've looked around and seen what other people's advent calendars are going for, and mine costs a little bit less. I have less overhead. I don't have a brick and mortar store. And so with less overhead, I'm able to charge a little bit less. Speaking of money, this is a question that no one has actually asked me, but I wondered about it, and maybe you've been wondering about it too, and that is tariffs. As you probably know, the wool that I use is not American wool. It comes from Peru. And so a while back, like a couple months ago, when we started hearing about tariffs, I messaged my supplier and I said, what's going on with the tariffs? Like, is this going to drive the price up? And at the time he was like, I don't think so. Like, I don't think Peru is on that list of, going to get slapped with tariffs. And then I just got a message from him that he sent out to everyone that said there is a 10% tariff that will be on the wool when it comes into the US. But he said, I will be absorbing that 10%. So that's great. I sent him a message. I was like, thanks so much. That's really nice of you to do that. So right now, if it stays at 10%, he is going to absorb that and prices will not change. If it goes up and the cost gets passed on to me, I will absorb it. So you basically have 2 layers of absorption that will keep the price from going up on you. So that's good news. That's good news, because we just prices can't go up anymore. I just texted my husband yesterday from the grocery store. I was like, do you remember when every time we'd go to Costco, everything cost $10? Like, that was the Costco thing. Now that's the regular store, the regular grocery store. Like, everything is $10. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Grocery prices, I can't even. So good news, yarn is not going up. Yay. Okay. One more thing that I want to share with you, and this is not specific to Knitty McPurly. It sort of is, but it's just something to be aware of. I had a lovely knitter message me the other day and say she was in the League of Extraordinary Sock Knitters and she had canceled it. And so she said, "Oh, I noticed that I got charged like yesterday." And I said, "Really?" I was like, "That's really weird." So I go to look and I have no record of a charge. And I said, "Could you send me what it looked like on your credit card thing?" And so she did. And I said, "Is that the way that my other charges look?" And while we're talking about this, I'm also talking to my Shopify people and all of that. And what they're telling me is, because I didn't charge her, I have no record of this charge, but she got charged by something that looked like my shop. They were like, "That's fraud. That's a fraudulent charge." So she contacted the bank and they gave her money back. But it's a pretty good scam to put a charge on your credit card that looks like it's from a trusted shop that you did not make. So just something to be aware of. If you see something on your credit card, if it's from me, please contact me first, because sometimes people bought something and they didn't remember. And if you say something is fraudulent and it's not, it's really hard to walk that back. I get slapped with a fine, and I've had that happen too, where someone's credit card gets stolen, and as a result, they go back and they just say every one of these charges was fraudulent, and mine gets lumped in there. So I lose the money from the sale. I lost the item that I already sent to them, and I get a fine on top of that. So don't say it's fraudulent unless it really is. And you can contact me. If it's my shop, you can contact me and say, "Is this an order that I placed?" And I can look and see. But this is just a scam that's out there that we should be aware of. Check your credit card statements, even if it's from a trusted shop. Verify that that's a purchase that you made. That's so smart of the thieves, but also super diabolical too. So there it is. Okay. Whew, that was a lot of stuff. All right, moving on to the comments. Old Orcut Yarnery, hi Lisa, says, "Oh my goodness. I'm the one from a few weeks ago with the non-knitworthy husband, the socks and the hat, remember? He never wore the socks. He asks for a hat. He goes for a walk, comes back without the hat. He doesn't like the hat. He gets too hot wearing it." She says, "Guess what? He has asked for a sweater. OMG, should I do it? He wants a Henley style sweater, no heavier than DK, with a zipper at the Henley placket. I'm undecided if I'll have time to do it. Your thoughts? Thanks, knitters." Okay, we have got to help Lisa out here. My first instinct was, oh my gosh, your husband wants a sweater? Yay! Then my second thought was, when I remembered the hat thing, I thought, oh, what will it do to your relationship if you make him the sweater and he never wears it? I think that's something to consider. Because I think whatever that is would be worse than, oh gosh, I know you wanted that sweater, but instead I just bought you this one from the store. I think that's safer, but that's just me. Anyone else? What do we think? Should Lisa make her husband a sweater, or should she just buy him one at the store? Okay, Nick Knits says, "This may be a hot take. Does hot take mean what you think in the moment, but you haven't really thought about it? Is that what hot take means? I don't know." She says, "But I detest the phrase selfish knitter." I don't know if this is a hot take or not, but I actually really like what Nick says here. She says, "I don't think there is anything selfish about knitting things for myself, and I don't owe it to anyone to knit for them. If someone is really great at cooking and they cook themselves meals daily, we don't call them a selfish chef. If they cook for us, we just appreciate it and move on. We don't sit there and point out all the meals they cooked which they didn't share. I suppose this might be different if they are a spouse and don't make enough for both, but now we're getting away from the heart of this. Knit away, knitters. Make yourself all the things and don't allow yourself to feel even the tiniest bit of guilt over it." I think that that's good advice and a good way of thinking about it. I think the reason we have the phrase selfish knitter is because knitting historically has been something that like the mother would do for the family, and would do that for other people. But that's not the life that we live anymore. We have Amazon, we have Target. We can go to the store and buy pretty much anything we want for cheaper than we could knit it. We are knitting for the joy of knitting. So it's just different. Janet, hi Janet, says, I knit 2 adult skirts. The last one, I had to cast on 698 stitches and knit in the round, and I twisted it 3 times. Oh my gosh. So then she says, so then I knit 4 rows flat and then joined it to keep from twisting the stitches. And then at the end, I just seamed up that little tiny piece. That makes so much more sense. I have never cast on 698 stitches. The most I've ever cast on was, I think, 400 stitches. I made my daughter this beautiful little scallop shawl. And for some insane reason, I was like a brand new knitter. This pattern had you cast on the long edge and then go down to the tiny little 3-stitch bind off rather than work it the other way around. But I could see for a skirt, there are 2 openings. That's what you're going to have to do. So, wow. Catardiff says, I knit the Noro pencil skirt a couple of years ago. I really like it, but I must say it's very warm. I live in Southern California and I've only worn it a handful of times. It demands to be paired with tights and that ups the temperature even more. I get that. And I live in Virginia where it's not particularly, it's warmer here than further north, but we get 4 seasons here. We get full on cold. And I don't like to wear things that are too hot either. I'm kind of off long sleeve sweaters of any weight, unless it's like a fingering weight. I just get too hot. When I get older, will I get cold again? I don't know. Okay, moving right along to knitting fantasies. So of course, now that I said that, I'm going to show you this beautiful sweater, which is just so pretty, has an all over lace motif. It is in an Aran weight. However, I wonder, I don't know, I think it might be difficult because it's only offered in 4 sizes in terms of like if you wanted to switch up the gauge, maybe. But she has 2 DK weight yarns held together to make an Aran weight. Now, one thing about this sweater that I looked into, because it only is available in 4 sizes, which I get because of that big lace pattern. When you have big repeating motifs like that, especially in the body below the arms, you're going to have fewer sizes. It's not going to be as easy to make that many sizes. So the smallest size finished garment is a 28-inch circumference, which is pretty small. The medium size, so it's small, medium, large, extra large. The medium is a 35-inch, but then there's a big jump to the large, which is a 42-inch. So I don't know. I'm not sure if we could gauge switcheroo that up and use a different yarn, but it's really pretty. I just really liked how it looked with the bell sleeve and the all over lace pattern. I thought it was really pretty. More practically, my second pick is called the Lacy Loop Tee. And this is super cute. It's a fingering weight t-shirt. It's a little pricey. It's in kroners, which I think is Denmark, but it's about almost $10 for the pattern. But if you really like it, go for it. It looks like it's knit in something like a cotton or a cotton blend. No, silk. This is a silk in this picture. But I really like it. I thought that it was very pretty, looks very wearable, something I would totally make. All right. So here's what happened. I'm excited about today's So Here's What Happened story because it is from my real life friend. I have, other than my podcast friends or my knitting retreat friends or people I've met through knitting because of knitting, I only have 2 friends in my real life who knit, and one of them moved away to Montana a few years ago, and the other one is my friend Yvonne, who lives here near me. Our paths don't cross because her kids are different ages and they go to different schools, and we just do different things. But it is always a joy for me when our paths do cross. I ran into her at the grocery store the other day, and we talked for like 20 minutes. Her daughter was like, "Mom, let's go." But anyway, Ivana's my real life friend, and we met in church, and I don't even know how I knew that she knit, but when I very, very first started knitting, and my first sweater that I ever made, which was for Gigi when she was teeny tiny, I got to the point where you had to divide for the sleeves, and I just could not understand it, and Ivana helped me. So here she is. She says, "Hi, Devin, I have a pretty good story for you. And it does begin with you, so I have to share. This is the story of how an asymmetrical triangle shawl became my yarn regret shawl. In 2017, I went with Devin to the Ann Budd Knit for Fun retreat. In my shawl design class with Justina Lorkowska, I cast on the tab for an asymmetrical triangle shawl. My intent was to make a shawl using the Schoppelwool Alb Lino. I don't know what that is. That sounds like some European fancy yarn. One skein and done. This is the plan. I worked on it a little bit and then I forgot about it. Early 2023, I rediscovered the abandoned shawl and moved it into the pile of projects I needed to sort out. Some of those were things that I ended up frogging because they were never meant to be. This one I kept in the maybe pile. In July 2023, I needed to find a car project for my upcoming big trip. Since I had been so ambivalent about this project but loved the yarn color, I decided that being in a car for 3 weeks was the motivation I needed to get on with it. In it went into my knitting tote along with the Mesa Verde NP beanie that I was working on. In August of 2023, we hit the road to Colorado on our trip to visit family and 3 national parks. I unfortunately did not know that I was going to be trapped in a car with this disaster of a skein that nearly drove me to madness. Let me tell you, it was such a bummer ball of yarn. The yarn kept falling apart. It would have these random spots of thin stranding, barely being held together. The linen and wool were not spun properly. It was a lemon of a skein, full of imperfections. Despite the yarn, I pressed on, knitting, and decided that I would tie up the broken ends because I am no quitter. Disappointment set in. Too many ends had to be tied together. It was making me crazy. Then frugality set in. I kept with it because the yarn was too expensive to waste. I assured myself that this isn't going to be a fancy shawl, just more of a daily wear, and these little sections won't matter in its function. Since I did have some of the Nancy Bates NP beanies to finish, I was able to go back and forth with this shawl and the hats to stay sane. The saving grace in all this is me having the foresight to add a skein of Noro Tayo yarn into the shawl project bag. Tayo has a similar texture to the wool linen lino yarn. I didn't plan to use it, but I always feel like you should have a backup skein. I gave up on the lino, the last week of our trip. Once it was clear that the lino yarn was going to be a continued nuisance, I changed my mind on the shawl's initial plan. At that time, I decided to finish it with the Noro yarn, a yellow triangle at the top and then a lovely rainbow gradient of the Tayo. Instantly, it was a better vibe. No more broken yarn. By October of 2024, I had been working on and off with this project, and I changed my vision once again. While I had been enjoying the Noro yarn, I also liked the idea of the variation. I wanted to break up the gradient with another solid color. I came across some leftovers of Knitted Wit and Madeline-Tosh Merino that were from hat projects. I loved the colors, and there was not much of either for anything but adding to a shawl. So that's what happened. I added in the colors and used them until they were all gone. Yay! Stash busting shawl. A new plan. Use whatever stash yarn I have and knit until I have had enough of this project. December 2024. In preparation for my attendance at the Knitty McPurly retreat, I needed to gather yarn for the classes. I went straight to my stash. This is where I found all the yarn regret. I'm a non-monogamous knitter, and this is a problem because I always have yarn regret. Great memories, and now it's time for me to move on. I went through my stash and pulled out yarn that I won't ever use. Most of that yarn is going to the youth group knitting club at church. I also took some of my yarn regret to the retreat to pass on to a new yarn lover. In that time of reminiscing of old yarn loves, I came to the conclusion that I'm going to hang on to some of that yarn for one last fling of a project. The few skeins I still have tenderness for are all contenders for the shawl. Friends, this is how I finally came to name the shawl my Yarn Regret Shawl. What began as a simple one skein project has become a mission for me to unload regret yarn. Yarn I thought I loved, but it turned out to be something that I have regretted buying. Yarn Regret Shawl. During my week at the Knitty McPurly retreat in Grapevine, I decided to pick up other people's yarn regret from the table to add to this shawl. Let me tell you how much more fun this has been finding more yarn regret yarn to use. Adding in yarn regret from other knitters has made this such a collaborative project. If you want to make your own yarn regret shawl, I came up with some rules, like Fight Club, but for yarn. She cracks me up. Rules of the yarn regret shawl are: cast on for your favorite style shawl. That's step 1. Step 2. Yarn choice is all about using the yarn for as long as you want. When it makes you nuts, change to another skein. Step 3. Regret the yarn, then move on. Don't dwell on it. Take it back only if you want to. Bonus option, use other knitters' yarn regret to make it collaborative. I love this idea because we all have yarn that's been sitting there for a while. And maybe when we bought it in a moment of excitement, we're no longer excited about it. This would be a good idea for a blanket too, like to just use up the regret yarn in a blanket or a shawl, either one. That's a great idea. I love it. Thank you so much, Yvonne, for sharing your story. If you have a knitting story, I'm not sure how many more I have, but I don't think it's a million. So please send me your knitting story, Devin at KnittyMcPurly.com. I would love to share it on the podcast. I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful week, and I will see you here next week, Holy Saturday. And we're going to be casting on the next day for our Hey Sailor knit along. Yay! Have a good week, knitters. Bye.